Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about my personal method for increasing on 10 rep sets. And of course, you can do this for other things also, like you see me with pen laser doing 15s with my axle bar. But I get this a lot. People are like, Jason, you do a lot of 10s. How do you progress on it? And the same thing comes over to my clients because a lot of my clients run variations of conjugate. A lot of my clients do a lot of 10s. I'm not saying that's all they do. Obviously, I don't have anyone who does only 10s. But on these supplemental lists where we're doing 3 by 10, 4 by 10, 5 by 10, the question becomes, how do we progress on them? Now, when someone asks you something of how much should you start with, well, I mean, if we're at this point, then you probably need to learn how to lift. If you can't figure out how much weight to start with for 10 rep sets, even on a new exercise, well, you just have to get under the bar and find a weight that's reasonably challenging for 10 rep sets. Now, for me personally, we're usually doing 10s on exercises that it's not always ideal to go to failure on, right? Bench presses, incline benches. Things like rows, we definitely don't necessarily want to go to failure because our form starts breaking down. We need to go to fatigue. Same thing on these various presses. So let's take an example of how I do the incline presses, because I come over and I usually am working my way up. So I already have a baseline. So what I generally do for 10 rep sets, and this can apply to any sort of press really, you come in and learn to stay tight, do 9 reps with the weight that you've been using, and obviously it should be challenging at that point if your weight is appropriate and you've been slowly increasing, and pause on the last set. So when you get to the last rep, I do a little bit of a pause on the chest and then drive it up. So people say, how do you increase? Well, when you get to your final set, let's say you're doing a 5 by 10 with some of these supplemental movements. And for some of you, it might be a main movement. Maybe you're doing 10s on a main movement. When we get to the last rep of the last set, if I feel I have more in the tank, or let's say I get to rep 8. When you get to rep 8 and you know that you still have multiple reps in the tank, you can skip the pause. You can start hitting more reps and then see what you can get. Because if you're not a novice lifter, failure doesn't come out of nowhere. You don't just magically fail on a multi-joint exercise. If you have a couple years of training experience, you know when you hit rep 8 that you have 2 more left, or you know that you've got more than 2 left. We can always tell when we're within a couple reps. So what I tend to do, I will do on the last set, I'll take it on out and see how many I can get. And if I can get 11, we might want to stay at that weight or micro load up. Because if I feel like an 11th is grindy and really hard and was probably my last rep, well, that means that's probably an 11 rep max. And that means and it might be a little bit less than that on the first few sets. If you're doing 3 by 10, I might go ahead and add a microplate. Okay, if you're doing something like 3 sets of 10, I would probably consider adding a microplate. But if you're doing 5 by 10, which is a lot of what I do, I have enough accumulated volume that if we have 2 reps left in reserve for all of the sets, we're still getting a fair amount of quality reps. Like let's say we work with the rep in reserve hypothesis, which is debated. It's got good backing for it, but by that same token, there's good debunking of it too, at least in some circumstances. But we know that the first 4 sets, if we had 2 reps in reserve based on that, we got 9 quality reps out of that. Okay, 9 quality reps. Well, actually 12 if we do the first 4. And let's say we get 4 quality reps on the final set. That's 16. That's about, in terms of quality reps, what we would get from hitting 3 10 rep maxes. We just have a little more overall volume. So what I personally like to do is wait till I can get 12 reps. If I can get 12 reps on the 5th set, it's time to add a little weight. People say, well, how much weight? Well, it depends on how much weight's on the bar, doesn't it? If it's an exercise that's over 200 pounds, well, if you can get 2 extra reps, you might want to add 5. But if it's less than that, then maybe add a fractional plate. And most of you should have fractional plates. If you're trying to slowly increase lifts, you probably need fractional plates. Your other option is going to be you're going to have to wait till you can get quite a few more reps. Okay, but this is a good system to use. Now, when I'm dealing with exercises I do more than that, like let's say the pin lay row, if I'm doing 15s, I'm only going to go up in microplates. But I don't necessarily always go for more reps. It can get to a point to where if I can get a 16th rep on the final set, probably time to add a fractional plate. But movements like this, we're not trying to increase too quickly because we don't want our form to break down. We don't want our form to break down. And in all honesty, movements like this, like let's say it's a very strict exercise and we're doing 15s, those microplates add up. Well, what do I mean by very strict higher rep exercises? Well, things like pin lay rows, maybe good mornings, right? Things like that. Things like that. We can slowly microload the weight up. We can load it up over time. But we don't want to do so at the expense of form. On movements where you can be a lot stricter easily because there's no way to cheat with your body, again, we can go ahead and push those final reps. So that's my general rule. If it's a 3x10, and this is what I tell clients, if they can get an 11th rep clean, a clean 11th rep on the final set, we can bump the weight. If we're doing 5x10s, an 11th rep doesn't necessarily justify a weight increase. But if you can get 12 reps without grinding the holy hell out of the last rep on that 5th set, you need to make a weight bump. It's time to add a microplate, fractional plates. So you might bump it 2.5 pounds. If you feel confident with it, go ahead and add 5. Like for me, when I did my last couple of 5-pound increases on the incline, it's because I managed to squeeze out 13 reps. Now, if I'm able to get 13 reps on the last set, we're not getting a lot of quality reps. We're only getting 1, maybe 2 quality reps on the first 4 sets. We need a 5-pound bump at that point. We need a 5-pound bump at that point. And I think the thing that people have to keep in mind when we're doing multiple sets of 10s, we're not necessarily looking to get within 1 rep of reserve in the first few sets. We're not looking to do that. We're just trying to get a couple of quality reps at the end, maybe 3. So it probably is a weight you could grind out 12. But when we get to that final set and we really start digging the fatigue deeper, we do want to make sure we're getting close. And it's good to test that one and drag it on out and see where we can go to figure out how much weight we need to add. Because when we talk about volume being the primary driver of hypertrophy, it still needs to be quality reps, and tension absolutely matters. And if your target is to hit 10 rep sets and you're continually working with your 14 rep max instead of maybe your 11 rep or 12 rep max, it's going to be a problem in terms of getting quality reps in. And I'm not saying you're not going to grow from it, but you're probably not working as hard as you could be. Okay, probably not working as hard as you could be. But by that same token, especially something like the overhead pressing, strict pressing, being able to pause at the bottom for a couple of seconds will let you bring up that quality rep also. Meaning sometimes you might be working with an 11 rep max. But because you can rest pause the last rep or two, you can go ahead and get more total quality reps per set. Because you're probably working with a slightly higher percentage of your 1 rep max, or even a higher percentage of your 10 rep max. So I usually, as a general rule, like to use the last set on these exercises to determine how to increase weight, because it's easy with smaller movements that we can safely go to failure on, and we do go to failure on. It's easy. We just go to failure, and we probably will lose reps with every set. So let's say you're doing 3 sets of 10 to 15. If you take them to failure and your breaks aren't real long, you might get 15 reps on the first set, but you might get 14 on the next and 13 on the next, because it's going to be hard to repeat that performance. That's easy to determine how to increase. You just increase and stay in the rep range you want. That's why for smaller movements, we usually just have a rep range we're roughly trying to hit. But with these bigger movements, we might be trying to hit a specific rep. And we're going to probably take slightly longer breaks. We're probably going to leave at least 1 rep in reserve. But the final set will tell you how much you need to increase, because you can go ahead and usually take that last set And it's like, let's see if we can get more than our target reps. And again, if you can get 12 or 13 reps on that last set, you absolutely have to add weight all the way across on the sets across. You want to make sure that you're getting the quality work that you want. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.